What's up, guys? So today is hatch night. I know this because I wrote on the calendar. As you can see, the eggs are nice and silver. They've all got their silver eyes. I had some stragglers last night, so I know for sure the rest will hatch tonight. It's about 9:38, which means in 22 minutes these lights will turn off on a timer, and then I will collect them using the Vossen Trap. As I've explained in my videos before, basically this is what I'm using to catch. As you can see here, here's one of the tanks I have, just a bunch of clowns in them. This is the 10-gallon, which is where I let them grow out once they've hit meta. And then this is the tank where they are living for the first 2 weeks of their life. Again, so 2 weeks, then here for about a month, and then from a month to here. So, pretty much here's the trap. I'm gonna do a video of what it looks like with the lights turned on, only because during when the lights are all off, you're not going to be able to see everything, and it's kind of going to be kind of pointless to look at the video. Alright, so once I hook it in, I try to rise it above. Basically, when I know it's hatch night, I put the pump onto the light timer. That way, in case I'm ever out or I know I'm not going to be home when they hatch, I get them to turn off automatically the pump. That way, when I come back at night, they're all caught in here. So what's going to happen is in 20 minutes now, it's pretty much going to shut off, and I'm gonna put the light, so this is the little tea light it comes with, and I put this right about here. That way they are attracted to the light and get sucked into the current. So once it's in here, there's a little attachment that is basically an airline rigged tubing, and I just put this excuse me, and I put this airline hose. So this is what creates the current. So I'm just gonna put this here, and let me just turn off this heater really quick. Same thing, I make sure I put a heater in. That way when the transfer from here to that tank is going, it's not that much of a temperature difference. So here I've got 2 airline hoses. So what I do is, since I'm not going to use one of them, I put it on to the the Vossen Trap. So I'm going to disconnect this here. Let me put this down for a second. So as you can see here, what's going on is I'm attaching the hose. Excuse me about the cough. So as we can see here, the hose part is attached, and what's happening is the bubbles come up go through this little loop, come through here, and then the fish get trapped and come in here. So that's a little bit too much current for the fry, so I'm gonna turn it down just a bit. It's a little bit better right here. Still kind of high, but I'll adjust it. Basically, you don't want it to where it's gonna create too much current here, and then they're gonna be struggling while they're swimming, and then you'll see a lot of them start to roll. Once they start rolling, usually those will die. So I like to turn this down. What I'll do is I'll mount this here. And adjust it. So as you can see here, here's kind of like a current you want to be at. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the heater back. Usually I give it about 2 hours before I turn on the light. What I don't want to do is basically have the light on the whole time. Obviously the light on is gonna bother the fish, and they won't pop out of their eggs, and it delays the breeding. So basically it's turns off at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What I do is I have this running, and around midnight I'll basically turn on this light, come back in 15 minutes, and probably 90% of them will be in here. And from there I'll turn the lights back on, move them from here to here, where I'll kind of show you what I have right now. So I have a spotlight. I don't point it directly at it. You can see I've got some already in there. Like I said, some come usually a day early than the other guys. This is where I've got my heater. I'll explain more in the video why I got it built with a PVC pipe and that, but basically it's to prevent the fry from swimming towards the heater. But when I'm moving them over, I'll explain more about that. So for now, we're just gonna wait until the lights turn off. These will be off at 11 normally. So around midnight I'll catch them and go from there. I did forget to mention, for demonstration purposes only, I put the thing in here, the bubbler. What I normally do is I just keep the regular sponge filter I have with the bubbles running, so when the lights turn off, it's just that giving air, well, oxygen to the tank. What I've learned from past experience is if the bubbler is here, any little amount of light that comes from anywhere they seem to get attracted here. Now, I think it's just because of where I live. Where I live, there's a window like directly behind here. So I feel like street lights and any little thing gives off enough light for the fish to get attracted. So the reason why I don't set the trap right away is because if they're attracted to this direction and the trap is on, then for 2 hours they're basically going like this. And I've noticed a lot will start ending up like attached to the screen or on the bottom because I feel like they're exhausted and maybe it's too strong for them, whatever reason. I've had more success of just having the regular bubbler because once the pump turns off, the water level is going to go down, and then you're going to see that this right now it's like up to the rim of the catcher, but it usually goes like an inch below. That way it prevents any of them going back into the main tank. But basically what I've noticed is with the regular bubbler, they'll just swim freely, and then I'll attach the hose, put on the light, and then within the 15-20 minutes they're pretty much all caught. Again, I do just supply some sort of oxygen to the clowns, so that's the reasoning that I don't put the trap set right away. As I mentioned, it does take about 15-20 minutes at most. And I just put the trap here just to have it ready. That way, once I know it's time, just turn everything on instead of having to put it in the water, adjust it, possibly squish any fish in between the glass and the trap. So that's just what I do. Again, I'll try to do my best getting a video of the actual process, but it'll be very hard just because of the lighting. But again, I'll try my best. You can see she's already fat and ready for another lay. So usually after this, about 3 days later, she's already laying again. Alright, so on to the next part of the video. Okay, so now it's exactly midnight, and just to kind of give like a gist, you can see all the little clownfish in there. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn on the light. It's gonna attract them, and then I am going to add the hose to this part, trap part. And give it about 15 minutes, and then you're gonna see that they're all gonna be inside the trap. It's kind of hard to see this part, but as you can see, the bubbles are going and the fry are getting attracted to the light, and then they're ending up inside the trap. I know it's a little hard to see, but you can see the fry at least. And once it's been about 15-20 minutes, I'll turn on the light so you can see better as to them circling inside the trap. But you can tell they're like everywhere, and then they're slowly getting stuck in the top right part. So here's the light. Again, you see them getting all attracted to it. And then where my finger is pointing to is the mesh part. You see them slowly circling in there, and they're stuck in there basically. It's gonna take some time. Again, I give it about 15 minutes. After the 15 minutes, you'll notice that there's some still in the tank that I guess that are too smart for the trap, and basically I either manually catch them or pretty much that's it. I'll put the light towards the top and just kind of with a cup try to attack to get them. But like I said, more than likely like 90% of the eggs come in here. I'm in the fry. So it's a good ratio. And again, you don't have to do much work. The clowns used to lay on flower pots, but when they would lay on flower pots, I would just do it the night before. Or the night of. Usually I would move the flower pot over and let them hatch inside the tank. Obviously you get 100% catch rate with that, just because they're all there. Versus this one, again, there are sometimes like you'll see like 3 or 4 that are just like too hard to catch, or like swimming towards the bottom. There'll be a few that I won't be able to catch, and then I just turn the pump regularly on, and pretty much they just won't make it. It's just because the way this is, it's not gonna catch 100% versus the flower pot laying on you being able to move the flower pot to the tank. If you're gonna do flower pots, always remember never expose the eggs to water. And I like to do the old switcheroo, which is basically I have a flower pot that I have ready. When the clowns are when the lights turn off, I try to move the flower pot as easy as I can, and I switch it with an empty flower pot, and then without exposing it to water, just slowly move it and put a bubbler to it. I do have a second pair of breeding clowns, which I think they're gonna be laying in the flower pot. So basically I'll have a quote-unquote section B of this part of the video, which will be a separate video, but basically what happens if you have a flower pot and how I move it. Like I said, these clowns that I'm showcasing, they used to lay on a flower pot, and then one day they just decided we're gonna lay it on the wall, and ever since then it's always been the wall now. Again, there's really no preference. I do like the trap because it does catch a good amount of them, doesn't stress them out too much, and it's pretty easy to set up. You can leave it on, go do about your business. Obviously the easiest would be the flower pot, only because you just literally grab it, put some air on it, and then leave it in the tank and let it hatch overnight. But obviously it's a better success rate that way, because then they're born in the water, they're used to the water already, the temperature is just right, there's no shock. So the trap is good if you have no basic form of getting the fry out. You know, if you've got a ton of rock work and you just don't want to move your clowns to a breeding tank that's separate, you basically have no choice because it picks the heaviest rock, then yes, I'd highly recommend this trap, just because the trap is easy to set up, does its job, and you can catch pretty much all the fry. So again, that's if you have no choice, like they're on a rock, or they don't like to do it on tile, they don't like to put it in a flower pot. Um, like I said, they probably laid only 3 or 4 times on a flower pot, and then when I added more stuff, they just immediately stopped. I think these clowns just don't like the flower pot, because you've seen from other videos there's 2 flower pots in it. They'll play with it, but that's about it. So I'm gonna check up on this in a couple more minutes, and I'll turn on the light on that portion just to see what we caught. Okay, so it has been about 15 minutes. What I'm gonna do at this point is release, the hose, and as you can see, they're all in there. Most of them are. What I like to do is usually make 2 transitions. One, just so they're not circling so much in there, and not getting stressed out, and I can move them very easily and fast. So what I like to do at this point, disconnect the heater. So like I said, what I'll do is I'll dump most of them into the hatch tank, and then just put it for a second round, just to try to catch as much as I can. As you can still see, there's tons that haven't been caught yet, but most of them are in there. So I'm going to set this up here. And I'm just going to take it out slowly. So what I do at this part is I basically slowly drain it towards one side, just to get them out of the water. Slowly lift it up. I don't like to cause a mess, so I kind of tilt it towards the front. That way, when I actually level it, it's not pouring out of the thing. And as you can see here, ton. So obviously this is the same water. What I'm gonna do is just now slowly get them in here. Slowly fill it up with water. Turn it. And just kind of release them. So as you can see, most of them are in there. I'm gonna put this bad boy in for a second round just to catch some more. So for this part of the video, pretty much I'm just gonna turn off the lights and let it do its work again. So right now, the I put the trap in for the second time. So what I do now is basically I prepare my rotifers. So I took the gallon of rotifers out today because I knew I was gonna not use it for the coral tank or anything. It was solely just for the fry. So what I do here is basically, I take out a gallon of rotifers, I siphon it, and then I put this in with the fry. They do say that when they're born, their food is supposed to last 24 hours after birth. Basically, they still have food in their yolk or in their stomach that lasts 24 hours. Um, I have had a time where my rots died and I had an emergency and I didn't feed them for the first 24 hours, but a lot of them died. So always know that your rotifers need to be ready. So what I'm going to do at this point is just siphon a gallon out and then put it in with the fry. So go here. Um, I don't like to catch all the gunk, so I pretty much try to stop it right before the gunk. That's right there. So obviously we're gonna have a lot of rotifers. So what I'm gonna do is basically this part I'm gonna just, you probably won't see it, but what I'm doing is I'm putting it into the fry tank. Again, sorry about the lighting on this part of the video. It's just I don't want to mess up the light for the trap. So what I'm literally doing is I have the sifter, the collector, whatever you want to call it, inside the water, and I'm just tilting it towards one side to get all the rots in there, with grabbing some of the water from the tank. If you guys don't understand this part, leave me a comment or question and I can add to the next video basically what I'm doing, but during the day. Or actually, that's pretty much just what I'll do. I'll obviously I have to feed them every day. So with this part of the whole vlog, I'll basically, in day 2 is when I'll pour more rots into there, but during the day, so you can actually see what I'm doing. Alright, so I'm gonna start collecting my second batch now. Okay, so pretty much at this point I've caught as many as I can. Obviously some are gonna get eaten by the clowns, and not, like I said, not all of them are going to make it, but I did get a majority of them. And again, your main clowns will start to pick at them anyways, so they'll pretty much clear any ones you didn't catch at this pretty much moment in time. Just because you're providing them with light, they're gonna see little floating things and they're just gonna eat them. So again, what we're gonna do is detach this. Slowly rise it. Kind of tilting it to release water. And then there goes the rest. And then I'm gonna there you have it. All the little guys in there. Gonna try not to shine the light too much on them. So I've got that. I take out my suction cups. And get it going again. Gonna close the lid. Attaching the hose back just to get the bubbler sponge filter on. Alright, gonna turn up the dial. So that's back and running. So there is a plexiglass place about 5 miles from here. I did get this. It's not clear, but it's brown. I did it so the light coming in isn't too bright for the fry. You know, I've got all sides black. The front has this little window for me. And for the first night, I've already poured the food. What I'm gonna do at this point is attach this to the lamp. And I like to aim it away. The way I really test is I turn off the light. That way I can see how bright it is inside. Like, I don't like it too bright. But also I have the flash on here. But as you can see, they're all in there. So to why I have this, I did notice when I was doing this before, I did notice that in the morning I would find a ton of fry dead exactly under the heater. What I figured was the light that comes from the heater, it tends to attract them. So my kind of theory was they're just born. I had no light on anywhere. They see the red light from the heater, they swim towards it, they get burned, creates a giant pile of dead right under it. So what I did was I built that little PVC, which is basically a housing for the heater. So it has holes like all along the pipe, kind of like a little spiral, and then it's got the opening in the bottom. Basically the water is inside and it heats up, and it just basically so they don't go towards the light and basically die and get burned. So I made that. I think, again, because when I first started doing this, I never had a light to leave on all the time. So I think that's why. I mean, if other breeders get more success with the heater not being covered and don't have the light for the first 8 hours, everyone has a different method that works for them. This is just a method that works for me. Having the light on for like the first 2 or 3 days of life, obviously not directly towards it. I did have a different light, but I accidentally broke it prior to making to this video. So I have this really, really bright light. Normally it's a light that's not even half the size of that light. It's like, honestly, the size of this little thing. So you can see in comparison the difference. So this is just a temporary I do have a different light that I put on. Actually, I can show you. So this is the light I used to have. Like I said, I was cleaning today and I just broke it. I don't know how, it just doesn't turn on anymore. But this was more than enough. Again, I don't like it super bright for them, which is why I tint the water with the RG Complete. I put about 2 to 3 milliliters. Mix it before you put it in, obviously, and pour it in, like prepare the tank for them. That way when you have to add it, basically you're adding it to tint the water so it's not so bright for them, and also you're doing it for the rotifers so they're not starving out completely. So your water will start getting clear every day. So again, you don't have to add too much, just enough to make it a little murky for the fry and for the rotifers. So from here, what I'm gonna do is in the morning, once everything's kind of on and situated and I have the new light, I'll show you pretty much what it looks like. The ones that have survived, and probably the next video will just be the day by day, from day one to moving into here to moving to down there, and pretty much once they're at this point, from here the survival rate is really high. Obviously meta is the hardest stage to go through. That's when you'll lose most of the ones that are weak. But if you've done everything here well, as far as feeding them, I stopped feeding baby brine shrimp and switched to this food right here, TDO Chroma Boost. A is basically the size, like it's like particles of sand. It's even smaller if you want to think about it. Basically, baby brine shrimp I saw cause a lot of what's called sudden fright syndrome or sudden fright death syndrome, something like that. Basically, the clownfish are exposed to brine shrimp and they don't know what the hell it is, and they end up going into like a weird jerking seizure motion, and from that they usually don't recover. So I found this food that's also you can order from Reed's. Basically a Japanese food that's packed with like crazy nutrition for the fry. So we've got protein, fat, fiber, moisture, ash, phosphorus, and it's made out of krill meal, fish meal, squid, fish oil, and a bunch of other different ingredients. And I noticed a huge difference with this. So I wasn't losing as many. The brine shrimp also too, you have to like prepare it a day before, and then they lose a lot of nutrition value once they're already born. So you'll notice that your clownfish won't be as bright and vivid as feeding that. The Chroma Boost, like I said, I switched over to that and didn't have any issues. I can start adding it around day 3, and then by day 8 or 9, I'm completely off the rots and only feeding the Chroma Boost. Then it goes from A to B1 to B2 to C1 to C2, and then I think D. And then after D, I think it starts into small, medium, large. This is considered small, so that's why again. So it goes from A. So here's the next size, B1. I have B2 and C1 as well, but I keep that in the stocked in there when they're ready. The way I think about it is, A, you're probably gonna feed the first 2 to 3 weeks of life. Then after B, you can slowly, gradually switch them to B. And then from B, once they're in the grow out tank, you can start getting them C, C1, C1, C2, and so on and so forth. Some people use crushed flakes. I never liked it because if they don't eat it, it just kind of sits at the bottom. At least the granules here, they float and they're not as again, as soon as I put them in the water, you see the fry go right after them. So I never had an issue with that. So that pretty much concludes it for this part of the video. Again, the next video will just be 1 day post hatch and so on and so forth. If you have any questions about anything that I did today, so from using the Vossen trap to putting it into there, to the bubbles, the heater, to transferring them from here to the fry tank, and doing it a second time, and pretty much that's it. Any questions, comments, concerns, different tips that you maybe works for you, just let me know. Thanks for watching and tune in for the next video.